My name's Cole from FCP Euro, and today we're going to show you how to replace the front brakes on your BMW G05 X5. Alrighty, so off camera, we already replaced the front right brakes on our X5 behind us. And in front of us, we have half of our kit that we offer at FCP Euro. Now this kit includes Zimmermann rotors, Atte brake pads, the brake pad wear sensor, and all the hardware with some brake assembly lube that we're gonna need to install these brakes. So when do we need to replace the front brakes on our X5? Well, on this vehicle behind us, it actually had the front brakes replaced at 59,000 miles. And FCP Euro recommends replacing the front brakes on these vehicles anywhere from 50 to 70,000 miles. Some symptoms of bad front brakes on these vehicles include poor braking performance, some vibrations in the pedal, squeaks, rattles, and we also have a brake pad wear indicator on this vehicle, so it'll show it on the dash. Now that we've gone over all the parts on the table, let's go over all the tools that we're going to need for this DIY. The tools we're going to need for this DIY include an arrangement of sockets, including a 17mm wheel socket, E16 Torx, and 6mm Allen. We'll need a long ratchet, a wheel hanger, a punch, a flathead screwdriver, an assortment of hammers, including a dead blow and a ball peen hammer, pliers, an assortment of torque wrenches ranging from 16 Newton meters all the way up to 140 Newton meters. For cleaning, we'll need some brake cleaner, some Scotch-Brite pads, some wire brushes, and optionally a hub cleaner. Some tools that are optional but not required for this DIY are going to include some power tools to my right here and a brake caliper spreader tool. Now that we've gone over all the tools on the table, let's get into replacing the front brakes on our X5. If your X5 is equipped with air suspension, before we lift the vehicle, we have to disable the system. To do that, we're going to have to press the ignition button, hold the switch down for 7 seconds, and then release. Once we release the button, you'll see there's a level control not available change message on the dash, and that indicates that we successfully deactivated the air suspension. With a vehicle in the air, we're going to want to remove all of the lug nuts that hold this wheel on. If you don't have an impact gun, you're going to want to do this on the ground with a breaker bar or a long ratchet. I have a 17mm wheel socket here, and we'll just start removing all of these lug bolts. One thing that's nice to have is one of these wheel hangers to thread into the hub, so pulling this wheel off is definitely a lot easier. We're going to need a pin punch that will fit in this little hole here, and then take a hammer and start tapping them out. Now that we have the pins starting to come out, we'll take a pair of pliers, grab the edge of that pin, and start to rotate and pull outwards. With the pins out, we can take a flathead screwdriver and work this clip out. With that clip now removed, we can get in here and further spread these brake pads using a flathead screwdriver, or we can also use a brake pad spreading tool to get in here and do the same. Now with the pistons in the caliper fully retracted, we could get a flathead screwdriver in here, separate it from the pistons because there is some adhesive on the back of these pads, and then slide each one out. With the back pad on the driver's side, you'll notice that we have a brake pad wear sensor. We can just slide this out. With the pad out a little bit, we can now take this brake pad wear sensor and unclip it out of the brake pad. Now that we have the wire out of the brake pad, we can start taking all of these grommets out of their holders. Open this little cover here that protects all the connectors, and then unplug our old brake pad wear sensor. Next step is to take an E16 socket and come back here on the caliper bolts and remove both. When removing the last bolt, be careful to hold the caliper, because when we remove this last bolt, The only thing that's going to hold the caliper is this brake line here. Now with the bolts removed, we'll take a little hook here to hang the caliper, remove it from the rotor assembly, and then hang it up. With the caliper in this position, we're going to want to clean everything on the inside. So we're just taking some brake cleaner here. We're going to do an initial spray down of the caliper on the inside. Then we're going to come back with our little brush here and just agitate all of that brake dust that is built up on the sliding portion of the caliper. And we're doing this because we're going to be re-greasing this section of the caliper, and where the pistons are right here, the pads actually have adhesive on the back side of them. So we're going to have to clean off as much as that old residue so the pad can stick onto the pistons. So just taking a brush here, agitating all of this brake dust, and then we'll come back with that brake clean again. With some Scotch-Brite, we'll just come in here and clean the surface face of these pistons, try to get all of that residue off. With this caliper all now clean, we'll take a little bit of this brake grease here, and I'm using a cotton tip applicator just for ease, but a finger will do as well. But we're just gonna lightly grease all of these sliding points where the pad is going to rest. Be sure not to get grease on the actual pistons themselves, because the adhesive from the back of the pad is going to be sticking on that. And we only want a very light coating on this because this is going to be where the brake pad is actually touching the caliper, and it is going to be moving around in here. And we don't want too much, or else if we put too much grease here, it's going to then might possibly transfer over to the rotor, which we do not want. With the caliper now prepped for the new pads, we're going to start taking the rotor off. We'll take our wheel hanger out, and one little trick is to take one of the lug bolts and thread it into the actual hub. So when we remove the rotor and hit it with a hammer, it doesn't fall on our foot, and this will keep it attached. So with that in place now, we'll take a 6mm Allen. In this case, we have an impact, and remove the rotor set screw. With that set screw now removed, we can take a rubber mallet. There we go. And break that bond free. Now that this rotor is loose from the hub, we can unscrew this wheel bolt and remove the rotor altogether. Once you remove the rotor, pay attention to the direction of where the vanes are on the side that you're working on. They are side specific, and we're going to want to match the direction of the vanes when we're putting the new rotors on. We're going to start cleaning this hub assembly, and we have a special tool here that makes it a little bit easier. This is a hub grinder, so we'll just take it on our drill, and this is going to clean our hub for us. It's not only going to clean the mating surface, it's also going to clean the center bore. You'll see there's a little bit left here of corrosion and residue or grease, and we can just take our Scotch-Brite here and finish polishing that section off. And the reason we're doing all this is so the rotor has a great mating surface and it can sit flat. If you don't have one of those hub resurfacing tools, you can always use a wire wheel on a drill or a right angle grinder. With our hub all clean, we can take our new rotor, slide it onto the hub, align where the rotor screw goes, and then take the new rotor screw that is included in the kit and thread it on. Continue to screw this in and just snug it up. Once we have this rotor snugged up, we want to just tap it slightly to make sure that it's properly seated. Now we'll take a flathead screwdriver and place it in between the vanes here to act as a counter holding device. With our 6mm Allen socket on our torque wrench, we are going to torque this rotor set screw to 16 Newton meters. Now, these rotor securing screws can strip out, so it's always good time to replace this And we're actually currently in development of a stainless steel version of this exact screw. So be sure to look out for that at fcpeuro.com. With the new rotor installed, we're going to take the new hardware that is included in the kit and reinstall the caliper. So we can just pull it off the hooks here, slide this caliper over the rotor. Be sure to not twist that brake line, and then thread in the new hardware. With our E16 socket and our torque wrench set to 130 Newton meters, we're going to torque our new caliper mounting bolts. All right. With our new Ate pads, we're going to want to remove this adhesive cover here to expose the glue on the back of this pad. Now, this glue is meant to stick to the pistons, so this pad will not rattle. So with that backing off, we'll just slide this in and make sure that the holes line up with the pad itself. All right. Now, the glue on the back of the pads is not going to set until we actually depress that brake pedal. So don't be afraid to tap this pad in and out to get that proper setting. Once we have one pad in, we'll take the tape off of the other side and install this back pad. We're going to be reinstalling all of these spring clips, and it's a good idea to take a wire brush and just clean up as much as you can to make that installation a little easier. These like to get a lot of brake dust built up on them, and sometimes if it's been a really long time without replacement of brake pads, it can be a little tricky to get them in with a lot of residue. With this spring all clean, we'll position it right here between the brake pads, just like that. We're going to be cleaning these pins with a wire wheel as well, because we will be reusing these in the caliper. With our clean pins, we'll come from the back side of the caliper, and we'll start to slide the pin through the spring clip to the other side and align it with the hole in the caliper. Once it's aligned, we'll take a little hammer and just tap this in. Now we'll take the other pin that we have and make sure that the spring clip is centered nicely. Push that pin through that bottom hole. Then we're going to have to preload that spring. Sometimes you need a hammer to just keep tapping it through. And we're just checking the alignment of this spring here. Make sure that it is equally pressed on both sides. It's centered, it's not cockeyed. That all looks great. With the protrusion of the sensor facing towards the rotor, we're going to take this brake pad wear sensor. So with the brake pad wear sensor positioned like this, we'll slide it into the slot in the pad itself and push. Make sure that is fully clipped in. Once that's clipped in, we'll take the wire and clip it into the caliper itself here. Now we'll take the rest of this brake pad wear sensor and snap it into place on all of the holders. Once all of the wiring is in place, we can take the connector, we can plug it back in, make sure we hear that audible click, and then reinstall the connector into this box here. For us, we've already replaced the brakes on the passenger side of the vehicle, so let's reinstall the wheel. We can now torque our lug bolts down to 140 Newton meters in a star pattern. All right, with all of our wheels now torqued to spec, let's head back inside the car and complete this DIY. Back inside the vehicle, we're gonna want to press the brake pedal down a couple times to make sure that our brake pistons have returned back to their place and we have a good firm pedal. With that done, now we're gonna have to reset the service light for the brake pad wear indicator. To do that, we're gonna press this start-stop button 3 times quickly, and we will enter diagnostic mode. Once we do that, we're gonna press and hold the BC button on the left stalk. We're going to wait for a menu to come up. Just keep holding. Now, once this menu pops up, you'll see right here on the dash that we can cycle through all of these different reset procedures and hold down the button to reset it. However, our vehicle just had the front brakes replaced, so it's not showing us an option to reset the front brake pad wear sensor. So if you do not see it here, therefore we're going to have to grab our scan tool and reset it that way. Plugging the scan tool into the OBD port and cycling the ignition. Now we're going to be selecting our vehicle here. With our vehicle now selected, we'll click the Hot Functions button, go into the Maintenance tab, select CBS Vehicle Data Correction, confirm the date and time, and now we can select front brakes and correct the service interval. With the ignition still on, we can now hold the air suspension switch down for 7 seconds and then release it to reactivate the air suspension. And with that, we just successfully replaced the front brakes on our BMW G05 X5. If you liked what you saw in this video, please be sure to hit that like button. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, drop them in the comments section below. We have a lot more DIYs coming for this chassis and many more on our YouTube channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. My name's Cole from FCP Euro. Thanks for watching and keep on wrenching.